Well, it's a good evening here from the studios in Brisbane, Australia. Of course, we've had our full day at work, but my two co-hosts tonight's show is just starting the day. And it's a good evening and it's a good morning to you two up there in the Northern Hemisphere. Hello, Andrina.
Hello, Jeffrey. Morning, John. Morning, everybody that's tuned in or tuning in to Dreaming the New Dream. And today's the 20th of February, and I just can't believe how fast we are whizzing through. Anyway, it's my great pleasure to have John Gibson on the show today. So welcome, John.
Thank you. And thank you very much for your invitation.
You're very welcome. Now, this is the first time I've actually seen John, because my dear friend Helen of, I don't know, about 25 years, when I've been with Helen at different times, she's spoken to John on the phone, and I've chipped in as well. And we've talked about sounding bowls and all sorts of things. So I've spoken to John over the years. But anyway, at Christmas time, I was staying with Helen, and I don't know, it came about you when we were talking about sound and the subliminal tones and all sorts of things. And I found out more about you. Then I thought, wow, that's something really interesting, and we haven't covered that before. So without much further ado, much further waffle, John is a healer, a poet, a writer, an artist, author. And I know you shared that when you were young, you had the ability to help others in different ways and allowing people to heal themselves naturally. So we've had quite a few conversations about this, and I know it's your aim to spread peace and healing through your work. So and I'd like to know more about the subliminal and all sorts of things. So without further ado, let's start at the very beginning. You're obviously born in Scotland. How did all these things come about?
Well,
in a nutshell.
Probably started when I was very young, and I was born in the 50s, and in these days we all went to Sunday school, and you hear great healing works, and even at that age, I felt this is something I would like to do. So I guess it always really remained with me, and it was something as I matured and became an adult, I wanted to become more involved in. But I think the first thing is that if when you talk to someone and you can engage with them properly, that helps. And I think one of the first rules of healing is to be a good listener. And if you can listen well, then that not only helps you to understand the person, but sometimes it helps them to understand themselves as well. Mm. And I guess that's why we come to the healing seed, the name that I chose, because healing is something that can grow within us. Unlike the biblical healings, which seem to happen instantly, healing normally takes time. It's a process. And as it takes a process to become unwell, it also takes a process to become better. So that's where it all really started for me, from my young age, as it were. But as I grew older, I try to develop it, but of course when you're growing up, you get involved in so many other different things in your life. So that was always kind of resident in the background. But as I got into my 30s and 40s, I began to become more involved in actually healing properly. The difficulty is that some people have a barrier up when you talk about healing, and it makes them a bit nervous. They don't understand it. So I found over time it's better just to let people find their own way, and for me to maybe work in the background and help them through things like absolute healing. But I think the most important thing is that people get confused about healing because they think of it as in like faith healing, and it's not faith healing. It's nothing to do with faith at all. It's to do with the energy of the universe and channeling that energy of the universe to help someone to feel better. And it comes in many, many different shapes and forms. Sometimes it can be, if you're putting your hands on someone, it can come over as being hot, warm. Sometimes it's cold. It depends on the energy that's required. And every person is different, and everybody's got their own way forward in healing as well. So it's always interesting, but the listening, as I mentioned earlier, and most important thing, I think, to establish that connection so that you can move forward and help the person get better. One of the things, so that in my early days, I played in a brass band. And I think before I get to talking about the subliminal meditations, it is important to understand the journey, because my subliminal meditations are really based on the experiences that I've had through my life. And these are challenging experiences, because it's only through challenge that we actually find our own strengths. We can either rise or we can fall. And one of my first lessons that I learned when I played in the brass band as a youngster at school, I went to play in the youth brass band of Scotland, which happened once a year. I was only 14, and I went for a week to St Andrews, and they audition you to see which band you're going to play in, the main band or the small band. And I got picked for the small band. I didn't think it was good enough to be in the main band, and so I accepted that. But I went back the next year, and when it came to the audition part, they stopped me, because they said, no, we're going to give you a different instrument to play because yours isn't very good. You know, the band I played with was an old brass band, and the instruments were all old and probably played terribly well, but I didn't know that at the time. So when they gave me a different instrument, I went straight into the main band, which was great. But the lesson I learned from that is sometimes we feel that we're not doing as well as we might, and we think it's to do with us, but very often it's nothing to do with us. It's just to do with circumstances, and it's learning just perseverance and keeping going and being the best that you can be no matter what. So quite a while after that, when I was a Sunday school teacher for a while, and one of the Sunday school teachers I always thought, absolutely wonderful person, kind, caring and everything, but she always looked as if she was a bit down inside herself, and I thought I would try and send her some absent healing, something I hadn't really practiced very much before. And the thing with absent healing is that when you do absent healing, you never ever really find out the results of how successful it was. So I did this, and a few months later, my ex-wife now, was coming at one of the supermarkets, and this Sunday school teacher was walking out at the same time. She said, "Oh, hello." She said, "How are you?" And they had a chat. And she said to my wife, she said, "The funniest dream," she said, "about John." And she said, I felt, and I'm trying to remember now exactly what she said, but I was sitting in a big warehouse and I was all alone, and all of a sudden John was there and he put his arm around me and gave me some comfort. And for me, that was a great confirmation that absent healing actually does work. And it's something I've continued with until this day. So at nights, I usually sit and go through my healing list and send out what energy I can to help those who are in need. But the thing is that in healing, you can practice. You know, I went to healing groups. You can practice with different people, but it's never the same as actually the real thing when you're working in someone who is ill. And I don't know, I must have been in my 40s. A friend called me and said, I've had a call. This man is terminally ill, but he wants someone to give some healing. Would you mind going on and seeing him? Now, I'd never had direct experience before then in working with someone who was terminally ill. So I said, yeah, I would go along. So he came along with me, and I met the man, I met his wife. In fact, I think I met some of his family as well there. And he'd had a terrible cancerous growth underneath his arm, and he was terminally ill. I mean, it was weeks his life was going to last. So I gave him healing, and in actual fact, I worked on his wife as well, because people forget that when someone is terminally ill, it's a dreadful thing. But the partner, the wife or the husband or whoever, they're carrying an immense burden as well, because they know that things aren't going well, and they've got to contend with the person who's seriously ill and how they're going to continue in their life afterwards. So I worked on his wife too. Then must have gone for the next few weeks. Then I had to go away to business somewhere, and then I got a call when I got back to say that he passed over, which was sad. But I got some lovely letters from his family saying that with the healing, whilst it didn't make him physically better, he was at peace and calm within himself. So he had a certain serenity before he actually passed over, which he didn't have before, which made his life much easier, and consequently the lives of his family around him as well. And the healing also helped his wife, because she felt more capable and hopeful of her future. So there's no substitute for working with people, but there's got to be a trust involved as well. And if people are uncertain, they can put barriers up unconsciously that stops the healing from being so effective. And I'll come back to that when I'm talking about the subliminal meditations. But having removing barriers is very, very important when you're working with someone to get the maximum benefit for them from the healing itself. But life does test you as you go along. And one of the other things that happened to me, I went through a very bad business phase in my life where married, children, mortgage, all the rest of the usual stuff. And things weren't going so well. I was in sales, and everybody in the sales team I was working in had exactly the same problem. And as you know, misery loves company. And people talk about how bad things were. And everybody felt a bit better because everybody else was suffering the same way. But that doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't make life easier. All it does is it adds to that negative energy, if you like, that's feeding off this unrest, this unhappiness, this despair that people had. And I certainly felt despair. I've never felt it. It was a terrible situation to be in, and it was, I thought I was going to go down for the last time. Anyway, the same friend who had introduced me to the guy who I worked on for healing that was terminally ill, had a friend who was looking for someone to do some part-time sales for him, selling motivational tapes. And I said, well, I'd have a go. And I listened to the tapes, and they were American, not particularly keen on some of their things, but one of the tapes was called The Phoenix Seminar by Brian Tracy. And it was an absolutely fantastic tape. I listened to it and I thought, he was talking about things that I already knew, but because I was caught up in this despair, this terrible situation, all the things that I knew to be true, I'd forgotten about. So from that moment, I started using positive affirmations, and I had to really work on myself to get from this terrible situation into somewhere where I could feel relatively positive and make things happen again in my life. So one of the guys in the office had decided he was going to try a telephone canvasser, and it didn't work for him. I thought, well, I'll try that as well, even though money was tight and all the rest of it. So I took on this girl, and it was the best thing that I ever did. I went from being suffering with everybody else to becoming the top salesperson in Scotland and the north of England. And it was an incredible journey and an incredible experience. But it was based on me having to change my mindset. And that's why I'm telling this story, because mindset plays such an important part in healing. And if we can change how our mind works, then everything else kind of falls into place behind that. And it's such a dramatic and wonderful effect for me at the time, from going from the very bottom to being asked to talk at branch meetings and all the rest of it. And it was an incredible feeling. So from a healing viewpoint, mindset is so important. If you get the mind right, even though nothing can be done to help perhaps physically the person, it can still make their state of life a lot better, because they will feel more peaceful and calm and serene inside. I think that's the important thing. Another stage of my learning in healing was that as a child, I could never breathe through my nose. So breathing was always a problem for me. I was a habitual mouth breather, and that caused its own problems, but I never knew any different. That was just the way it was. Now, I trained in karate for many years and had my nose broken a few times, and that might sound like a dreadful thing, but it was one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life, because when I went to get my nose fixed, and things had moved on considerably since I was a child, because as a child I was in hospital 4 times where they tried to fix my nose, never made any difference. But this time, many years later, the surgeon said, well, we can fix your nose properly so you can breathe through it. And he did. And it was the most wonderful experience I have ever had. I don't know to take drugs, but when I was breathing through my nose, I felt this is just absolutely fantastic. And it made me realize just how important breathing is, because most people take breathing for granted. They just breathe and that's it. They don't realize what a wonderful gift breathing is if you use it properly. And because I had never had that experience before, it made so much of a difference in my life that it was absolutely incredible. And I just, felt I had to share it with the people around about me as well. And if you look at people, you'll see most people do quite short breathing. They're not filling their lungs, and consequently they're always near or in the fight or flight mode, which means that you're never actually feeling settled. So breathing is another part of the healing process as well, because when somebody starts to breathe properly, and if you bear with me just for a second, if you want to just try it yourself, if you just focus on me for a minute and just inhale gently. Imagine it's like drinking a really cool drink on a very hot day and you're savouring the mouthful. When you breathe in, just breathe in, savour the breath, and then just release it slowly. I always release through the nose as well. And it brings so much pleasure and calmness instantly to the mind and the body. So that was another stage of the learning about healing process. So peace is the first step to healing. If you feel peaceful and calm inside, then all these tensions that are going on in your mind and your body, they just disappear. And it allows the healing process to operate much better. So it's something, nothing's ever easy. And it's something, if you want to feel better, then it's something you have to work at. It's not like an overnight, it's normally, not to say it doesn't happen, it's not an overnight success, it's a process that you're in. Mm. So moving along from there.
If I stop you there for a sec.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. So what I'm gathering from yourself, there's 3 components to this. There's yourself being in a healthy state of mind and balance, and then the individual that you're going to be doing the healing to break down the barriers. But am I also listening to the fact there's a 3rd component, and that 3rd component is the family or the network that's around that individual who's getting healing, because they see that individual who's going for healing, their perception, their picture of that individual may not have developed, is still in a negative frame, hasn't been transformed into a positive. So you actually, when you go and do a healing, you're actually looking at a broader spectrum of not only the patient, but that are holding it.
Very, very important. I guess it's a bit like when I was talking about the work environment where misery loves company. When someone is severely ill, then the family obviously is very concerned, and they talk about it, and they feel very, very strongly for the person who is ill. But in a way, there's no easy solution to it, because you can try to be uplifting to the person that's ill, but it may not necessarily work because they know the situation that they're in. And it's got to come from somewhere inside and deeper than from an external source. But the family that are around about them, if they feel better without forcibly trying to make the person feel better, their energies change, and that changes the energy in the room as well. So you're absolutely right, Jeff. That's a very, very, very good point.
So they end up projecting their negative thought patterns of the individual, saying, "Oh, yeah."
In fact, you very succinctly hit the nail right on the head, because healing is just about energy. Everything in this universe is energy. We're just moving at different vibrational rates, that's all, and we look solid and all the rest of it. But if you can soothe that energy, then it soothes the person, it soothes their energies, and then who knows what can happen from there. But energy is the key thing, and if there's a positive energy, then everything starts to feel better and become more positive from that.
Mm.
Yeah.
So then we go to the movie Sleeping with the Enemy.
Well, you see, I talk to people about healing, and very often they look at me with a blank stare in their face. You picked it up straight away, which is great. So, yeah. So, my wife and I separated, and I went to live in Tenerife for a while, and I met the person that became my partner there, or ex-partner now, but partner for a long time, and she encouraged me to paint. I wouldn't class myself as a painter, more of a splasher, but also along with that is words, my poetry. And she said you could put the two of them together, which I did. She was a Helen as well, by the way, Angina.
Oh, was she? Say no more.
Well, yeah, it's a family name. So,
Yeah.
so Helen encouraged me to paint and use my words too, which I did. And at the end of the day, as my sister Helen said many years ago, when you do something, it might not necessarily get the results you want, but if you're getting pleasure from it and it's opening you up in a sense and expanding your own knowledge, understanding, wisdom, or whatever you want to call it, and pleasure, then you should do it. So that's what I've done, and I've been splashing and writing for quite a while now, and for want of a better expression. But it gives me a great deal of pleasure, and I love colours. I think colours are so important, and the colours again are like vibrations. And if you surround yourself with vibrant colours, then it just picks you up, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Just have to go to London, brother. Go to London, and you see the colours there, grey and black.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, how do you, as a healer, how do you go and transform the concept that Australia see as the pommies is whinging, and they just go on, and they just drone on. How do you transform that energy into a positive, can-do nation? How does that work?
Send us some sunshine.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That sounds good for a start. I think the thing is that what I've learned is that you can't change people, no matter how much you want, and you can offer to help, which I have done. And help people, but a lot of people, they're in a comfort zone, and even though that might be misery, that's their comfort zone. That's how they prefer to be, and you can't change them. All you can do is aspire to be the best that you can, and when your energy is positive, and if you like, lights up a room, if that's possible, then without trying, you will automatically lift them up slightly in any case. But if you try to talk to them about it, then you get a completely different response.
Yeah.
So I have found, and now is I've changed the way that I handle things completely. I normally don't even talk about healing to people now. I just try to be myself, to be positive.
Yeah.
And I do find that works in a lot of instances. It'll pick people up rather than, even though they might not want to. I don't know if you've ever watched the movie The Life of Brian. And there's a scene in it where this cripple, played by Michael Palin, he gets healed, and he's not happy about it at all. He runs up and he says, "Why have you healed me? You've taken away my livelihood. This is my living, and now I'm better. I can't do that anymore."
Yeah.
Some people are happy I don't mean they're happy, but they're comfortable with it because it's what they understand. And so consequently, they don't want to move out of that situation. They're scared to move out of that situation. And not only that, they may be getting sympathy and help and enabling from other people, which makes them feel, I'm okay, I'm happy here. I can live with that, rather than take that step out and maybe grow inside and enjoy my life a bit better. And I think that's actually the key thing, because fear does hold us back a lot in life, and I include myself in that as well, because if you look back, there are things that you say, "Oh, maybe I should have tried that, but didn't," because I just didn't want to either embarrass myself or whatever. And it's that fear that holds it, as opposed to looking out and embracing life for what it is. It's a wonderful experience if we choose to have it that way, because it all comes down to choice. That's the important thing. And I've been around for a long time. I've been around the block a few times. I've had the knocks and what have you. But if you can accept the things that you can't change, then it makes life a lot easier, because if you don't, you're carrying this enormous burden around with you everywhere you go, and then something else happens and it's another part of the burden, and that's how people become ill, because the word disease is dis-ease. You know, we're not happy inside ourselves. Even though we represent an image of happiness, or it's not a true happiness, it's something that's a face that people put on to hide what they're actually really feeling. And so therefore, being the best version of you that you can be helps other people anyway, automatically, without you trying to do anything. Just being yourself, the real version of you, the best that you can be in any case.
Sure. Hey, do you guys in England have the Dyson vacuum cleaners?
What's a vacuum cleaner?
Dyson. Do you have a Dyson vacuum cleaners over there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, John is, the way I see John, and I'm hearing him, it's so profound. But if I feel he's like the old door-to-door salesman selling vacuum cleaners. So he comes in like a vacuum cleaner. He goes into that whole room where all those people are in their little negativity, and they're doing their little, oh, he healed me and all that stuff. You go in there as a vacuum cleaner, and you just go, you suck all that stuff out of them, and all of a sudden they just got to visualize themselves being perfectly healed. That's your job. You're the vacuum cleaner, you know. And if you're in the farms, you'd be the guy who's a shearer. He cleans up all the dags, you know, from the sheep.
Yeah. It's people are always fascinated, because everybody's always got their own story, no matter how they look or whatever. One of my favourite written pieces is the Desiderata, and it talks about people, and that everybody has got the story, even the dull and ignorant, they too have the story. And when you hear a person's story, then you realise how they got to where they are. And I think that the problem is, especially with modern medicine, they don't look at that at all. They just look at what's in front, and they're treating the symptoms rather than the problem itself. And most of the problems start inside, in the mind, in the subconscious, or through the heart. And if you think of the human body, the human mind like it's a computer. Basically, it's got a computer program. And in computer programs, you get bugs that come up that cause problems. And someone comes along and they clear the computer works fine, then it starts all over again. The human mind, unfortunately, doesn't work like that. It keeps these bugs and it builds up and all the rest of it, and it takes time. And it's only when that person has the desire to make that fundamental change in their life, to let these things go and to allow that positive energy into their life, can they actually start to recover.
Do a defrag and reboot, yeah?
So, yeah, it's something I could talk about for a long time. But so that's how I did my started off with my art and my philosophical words, and then I started my Father Heaven YouTube channel, where I do that. It's quite a quiet channel, but it's nice. I enjoy it anyway. Just sharing what I feel. But I've always had an interest in hypnotism ever since I was a young boy reading a book at the library about it. It's fascinated me, and because again it comes back to the human mind and how important it is. But an interesting part of it is I was lent a book by a cousin who had studied hypnotism, and in this book was this story about a true story, and in fact I believe it's recorded in whatever the hypnotism, the people that one of the managing bodies of it. This two doctors, one was a doctor, I think one was a surgeon. The surgeon had a patient who had a terrible medical condition that affected his skin, and the person couldn't work. They were having a terrible time and all the rest of it. And the surgeon was chatting to the doctor and said, "I'm going to have to operate and do this, try and do whatever it was he was going to do." And the doctor said, "Well, look," he says, "I do hypnotism. would you mind if I try some hypnotism on him to start with? And the solicitor said, oh, well, fine, yeah, it won't do any harm, on you go. So the doctor hypnotised the person, and the person actually started to get better. Their skin started to heal up. It got to the stage, if I remember correctly, it's quite a while ago that I read it, he actually got a job. But he was still continuing with the hypnotism to help him to maintain this positive attitude and approach. Then the doctor met the surgeon again, and they were chatting, and the doctor said, oh, the guy's doing so much better because of the hypnotism. And the surgeon, whatever it was, he said to him, said, that's absolutely impossible. It's not just possible for that to happen. And that put doubt in the hypnotist's mind. And as soon as that doubt appeared in the hypnotist's mind, the person who he had been working on, their health started to decline again to go back to where it was before, meaning that the energy, it was as much to do with the person that was trying to help as it was to do with the person who was being helped. And so what goes into our minds, whether you're a recipient of healing or whether you're trying to help a person or not, is very, very, very important, because that ultimately affects the end result. So hypnotism's always been one of these things that I was interested in, but that's what eventually led me to my Subliminal meditation channel. Then my partner, until we moved back here, was taking driving license, and it was taking a bit of time to pass our test. I don't think driving instructors are the way they were when I learned to drive. It seems to be so different nowadays, and consequently, it badly affected her confidence. And she'd sat a test a few times and something, a really hard time of it, and what have you. And she likes to research YouTube and things like that. She came across this Subliminal channel, and she says, "You could do that." And I thought, well, I could. Yeah, I think I could. So I gave it some research, and I produced my first Subliminal back in April 2019, which was for a driving test. Now, she listened to the Subliminal. I mean, I went out with her. I was an experienced driver, so I sat beside her when she was driving and all the rest of it, and could see what she was doing. And I could see that she could drive fine, but in her confidence, it was a problem. Well, she listened to this Subliminal meditation for about a week, constantly in the background. And I was out with her again, and I could actually visibly see the difference in her driving.
Wow.
She was not overconfident, just confident and more precise in what she was doing. So she sat her test again. I can't remember how many times she sat her test, but the driving examiner took her much harder than any route she'd been on before, asked to reverse and park in a busy street and all the rest of it, which she'd done. And then she came back round, and they were sitting out in the car park, and I went out, and my heart was in my mouth wondering what was going to happen. But anyway, she passed the test. And obviously she was ecstatic at the time because her confidence had grown through the Subliminal meditation. That was the proof, a bit like the absolute healing to start with for me, that it actually really did work. So that's what started me on my Subliminal meditation journey. Now, for those who don't know about Subliminal meditations, it's a bit like when I was a child, if we were ill, my mum would give us medicine, and medicine these days always tasted terrible. But what they would do was disguise it with sugar, so it tasted all right. Well, a Subliminal meditation is a bit like that, because when a hypnotist works on a person, they've got to break down the barriers of the conscious mind to access the subconscious mind, and that can take time, if it works at all for that matter. Whereas with a Subliminal meditation, it goes straight to the subconscious mind. So within what there is a background sound that you listen to, which could be rain, it could be music, it could be whatever, it doesn't matter. It just blends into the background. And within the Subliminal meditation are the positive affirmations and the positive suggestions. So you listen to the Subliminal meditation in the background, either in your kitchen or in your living room or when you're sleeping at night or whatever, it doesn't matter. And all the time, it's these positive suggestions and affirmations that go into your subconscious mind. And then, obviously, the effect starts to happen and people feel better. Some of the comments I've had from people were that they actually feel it very, very quickly. Now, there's a specific reason for that, because when I do a subliminal meditation, I don't just treat the condition that they want help for. Because of my experience about the breathing, about the peace, and all the rest of that forms a big part of the subliminal meditation as well. So very often when they start listening to it, they feel peaceful and calm, or they feel a peace and calm they hadn't felt before. And that's the foundation, that's the bedrock of the healing process that the subliminal channel does, or should do for them in any case. So, and more recently, I talk about the subliminal meditation having a background sound. It was in my mind that perhaps that a background sound might not even be necessary. It would be interesting to try a silent version. And the reason I say that is it comes back to the energy thing, because in a subliminal meditation, when you're listening to a background sound, you're not hearing the physical sound of the words. So in order for them to have an impact on your subconscious mind, it has to be the energy of the words that work. And on that note, I should add that we've had comments from people who are not native English speakers, and they say that the meditation works just as well for them. And so therefore it transcends language, because a physical word, the meaning of a physical word, the meaning is the same in any language. It's just the physical word that's different. So if the energy is there, then it does the same job no matter what language the person speaks. But I did create silent versions, and they've been very popular and successful as well, and which is great.
Because I spoke to you about this, didn't I? Because
yeah,
like this week, I don't know whether you can hear. It's absolutely hammering down at the moment. No, it's pouring. It's so. Anyway, I don't know if you can hear it, but yeah, and I'm saying to you, you know, I played this silent, and I said, well, how do I know what's happening if it's silent? It was like it was a different experience for me. So like you were explaining, like the sounds were still going through, even though I couldn't hear anything.
Pick it up, yeah.
Can you hear the rain here?
No.
Really? Wow. Anyway, I'm not going out today.
Quite right too. Yes, it's fascinating, because it's like an exploratory journey for me as well, because this is something that I've been working on since 2019, and being older, obviously, I've got a lot more life experience than some of the people who are listening to the meditations, and if I can use that to help them, and I hasten to add, it's a free channel as well. I mean, there is a subscription part for more specialized subliminal meditations, but the health ones are all free. That's the desire, is just to help someone to feel better, to get well.
Are we going to play any, Jeff? Are we going to, for people, because not everybody is aware of a subliminal tones or meditation, so it'd be nice to give a little example, but carry on.
I haven't sent Jeff any of my subliminal meditations. He's only got my smart ones, yeah. But the easy thing is, if you just think you're listening to that rain just now outside your home, well, that's one of the background sounds. So if you think you're listening to that rain right now, there could be positive suggestions and affirmations within that rain sound. Because a background sound can be a comforting sound as well. It's something that makes you want to maybe get cozy, cuddle up, feel safe and secure, and all the rest of it, which allows the other part to work very, very well. It changes the mind. Again, it's fixing this computer programming that's in the mind, the one that tells us maybe we're not good enough, or maybe it could be this or it could be that, or I can't run, or I can't walk, or I can't breathe properly. It's all to do with programming. And if we can fix the programming, not saying everything's possible. This is a journey we're all on. It's a process that we're working our way through. But if it helps at all, if we can adjust the programming and make life easier for people, then that's a success, and that makes me very happy.
I know this is some of your artwork, because I know Helen has got a couple pictures on the wall, and one of them, I said, oh, that looks like an angel or a face in the background. I can't remember which one it is now, but you like, I can see like at the top there, like, there's a little being in yellow there, little face.
Yeah.
And you can, well, I can see like down in my bottom right corner, I can see another face. And so I can see lots of things that others don't see it like that,
Well, that's really interesting you should say that, Angina, because I have found that, and it's the strangest thing how I work with the colours, because it does create images that I don't expect at all. I get faces, sometimes I get animals as well. Without me trying, I'm not got a paintbrush and trying to put a face, nothing like that at all. It's all very, on the surface, random. But obviously there's another energy at work there that kind of shapes things the way they're meant to be, or they're meant to be seen in any case. And I think, again, one of the things I was told many years ago when I first started exploring more the spiritual aspects of things, that you've got to have an imagination as well. You've got to be open. If your brain's in a closed box, it's never going to learn anything. It's never going to see. You're never going to stretch your imagination or your subconscious or your conscious mind. And so it's important to have an open mind, not to be deluded or whatever. That's not what I mean at all. It's just to have an open mind and make up your own mind about things, rather than making decisions based on what other people tell you. Even with they may have their best interests at heart, at the end of the day, the only person that can make the right decisions for you is you. That's it.
So are you going to show some of more of your artwork? Did you send Jeff some of the artwork?
Yes, he has. Yes, he's got a selection there. Poor Jeff's on the spot right now.
No, he does this. Comes easy to him.
Talking about healing, having said that, and having done research in healing, one of the things that really fascinated me was what you said, Andrina, that talking about the voice. I don't know if you've discussed this with any of the listeners before or not, but I'd never come across that before. I thought it was really, really fascinating.
Yeah, no, it was amazing what came up for you. I mean, and a beautiful testimonial. So thank you for that. And like, this is where the color comes in. Like I said to you, each note relates to a color and a star sign. So, and it's like whatever color you're wearing relates to that chakra, that energy, because like the darkest color I think I'll wear is a sort of dark blue or a dark purple. I'm not, black doesn't do anything for me. I don't think I might have a black pair of boots. That's about my limit. But and I know like today I knew I was going to wear pink, and like, for me, I know what color for the day I need to wear, so yeah, color is so important. It's such a vibration.
It is. But the thing that you haven't touched on, which I thought was absolutely impressive, was actually, if I've understood you correctly, is that the voice, everybody's voice has an octave. All the notes of an octave there, and some people have them missing. I had one missing as well, as you pointed out. And you can work on to improve that, because that also affects your general good health too, doesn't it?
It's like your voice print, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely fascinating. There are so many different types of feeling available, and it's not one size fits all. It's finding the right thing for you.
Yeah.
And you have to be comfortable with the person that's working with you as well. That's so important. If you feel bad, well, it's never going to be as effective.
Yeah, because I spoke to you about something, or somebody saying something which didn't make a lot of sense, and so we discussed that. But well,
that's the thing. For me, and it's just what I believe in anyway, that if someone says they're going to help you and excuse me, they try to help you, but you go away and you're not feeling any better. In fact, sometimes you might feel worse. Then there's something missing in the process somewhere. You should always leave feeling at the very worst, no worse than you were when you went in, and hopefully feeling a lot better than you did when you went in. That's what it's all about. And when your spirits feel a bit uplifted, then everything else feels that much better.
Yeah. And I know when we talk about healing, like in the past, you know, we'd sit people down and just put your hands on, or you lay them down, or whatever, which is still lovely to do, because I think, you know, the comfort for people when you put the hands on their shoulder is just so important. And I know now, with the energies changing and moving so fast, we can be in a room with a few people, and, you know, you don't have to think, oh, I'd love to give them some healing or anything. You know, our energies are moving and shifting. It's happening naturally. Just being in our presence now, healing is working on many, many levels, isn't it? That's what I find now. I don't have to go and, you know, I just allow whatever to happen when it happens. But when you talk about the breath, I remember, like, when we had our funeral business, you know, one of the important things to sit with somebody dying was to match the breath. And that was so important, that you were in harmony, you know, sort of at the end. I don't know if you obviously, which not a lot of people are aware of, but it's, that's another important thing. Is like, people don't really want to be with people when they're dying. No. And that's the most saddest thing in the world, because like I've sat with, you know, in the past, lots of people that have been passing over, and to sit with them and hold that space is the greatest gift. Just to be there, and, you know, and I can remember a person having fear, and I said, don't worry, you're going back home. It's going to be a massive party when you get over there. You're going to be surprised who's going to be there, like, you know. So instead of taking out the fear, you know, again, it's
so important. Yeah, absolutely right. And this is the thing. A lot of what we do in life is fear-led. Doesn't come from a positive. Most people are afraid of death because they don't understand it and they're scared of it. But it's all going to happen at one time or another. And so if you take the fear out of it, then that transition from this life to the next is so much easier for the person. They feel comfortable and happy to, well, I say happy, they're comfortable to go, and hopefully feel a sense of serenity. But there's a point you made earlier, which I think is very, very important, and I think especially true today, that touch in healing should never be underemphasized, because there are many lonely people in the world today, I think more so than ever before, because of the structure of society, and that if they, and providing it's done for the right reasons in the best possible positive way, a hand in the shoulder, at least there's a physical connection here, and someone knows not standing on their own. That's so, so important. It should, as I say, should never be underestimated, the power of a human touch. It's very, very important. But I think subliminal meditations, I think there are so many different aspects to it as well. I mean, the thing is, people, for example, that play in teams or, you know, sports and things like that, there are so many opportunities to improve how things work on a subtle level rather than on a direct level. And subtle can sometimes be much more powerful than the overt method. At least that's what I think anyway. Yeah, it's important.
Right. Jeffrey, have you got any pictures to put up? Or you put those up? Is there any more? I mean, you know, what is it? Watercolors you use for your splashing?
Acrylics. Yes. So, but with lots of water as well.
Right. Yeah. Because the colours are all lovely, aren't they? They're
These are video ones, so these are actual subliminal ones.
This is my most recent one.
There's no sound. Hold it up.
No, I'll turn on the sound.
Well, that's nice, John. That looks like I can see the eye, the mouth, like not a whale, but what are those big fish that sort of like a puffer fish? with a cherry on the top.
Yeah, I think it's because I sometimes look at them and I see things that I never saw before. But I don't know if you can see there. That looks like a domino to me there.
It looks like a what?
A domino, double one.
Oh no, it looks like a little dog to me, 2 eyes and a little nose, a little button nose.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can see lots in that one.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. Jeffrey's going to play one of your sounds now.
Which one?
Sorry.
Which one do you want to play?
Which
one of these do you want to play?
Which is your most popular?
Oh, sorry. Subliminal.
Yeah.
The most popular one is for people who are trying to stop porn. Porn is an addiction. And,
stop what?
Porn.
Oh.
Yeah. Many people suffer from it and they find it very hard to stop. It affects their lives in terrible ways. And I think that's probably the most successful one. But people ask me to do subliminal meditations for, if they've got a specific need. I'm happy to look at it, providing it's going to serve the greater good, if that makes sense. You get people who ask for things that are obviously very, very personal, but it's only for them, which is different. Yeah. But if it's a general condition, then that's different. I mean, I was asked to do one for people who, is it DCDB? I can't remember exactly what it was called now, but where they don't have a sense of reality, and that's proved to be very popular as well. Just to, take them out of that situation where they feel as if they're grounded, which is, there are so many different conditions around nowadays because it seems to be that when we do names for them. Yeah.
Right. You're going to play this one?
It's funny seeing it being played back on the screen.
Light language on there.
Have you done any art, Andrina?
Pardon?
Have you done any art? Do you do any painting?
Well, I got a row up there, and I'm not sure. I've done a bit of sacred geometry and leaves that I picked up, and I'll send you some pictures afterwards. But
that would be great.
I'm not an artist as such.
Well, welcome to the club.
I can't sit here drawing houses and people, but I love color, so mine's all about color. So so no, I enjoy it. I mean, I've got a table set up over there and I love working with glitter and color. I think I might have been a magpie in a past life because I need to do with glitter. And I've come back yesterday. I went for a little walk and I came back with a load of little tiny fir cones, and I've been spraying them gold and silver. I don't know what it is about. You should see. I got a basket with all these beautiful fir cones in. I just love fir cones, and so I don't know what that's all about. I'll have to look into that.
Well, I don't know if you know or not, but with fir cones, something I discovered when I was in Tenerife, I never realised, but if you put water on it, it closes up. If you take a fir cone, it just it opens up when it drops its seeds. If you put water on it, it closes, even though it's dead, it closes back up again. Yeah, it's fascinating. What about you, Jeff? What are you? Are you interested in healing at all, or art?
Oh, healing, yeah. But you talked about you keep your mouth shut, so you don't go and get on the soapbox and talk about it. So I learned that 30 years ago, and you walk in the room and you just intuitively read the room.
Yeah.
And you're sort of directed into the appropriate space on that, and you have a chat with someone, and then you walk out. You just got to be more aware that sometimes there's an energy transfer that, they get boosted, and then you walk out and you feel, oh, okay, the vacuum cleaner just sucked me, so I need to go out and just replenish
Discharge.
myself.
So you mentioned that because that's one of the subliminal meditations, and then was for energy vampires, because that used to happen to me quite a lot. You talk to someone and you come away, you feel absolutely drained at the end, and you've got to have protection up for yourself to stop that from happening. And one of the other things about healing that I was told many years ago is you have to be careful if you're working with someone not to actually take on what they've actually got. You've got to keep, it's not a barrier, it's just a protection to make sure that you don't take on whatever is happening to them.
Yeah. And some people got a lot more dramas than others.
Oh, indeed they do.
Okay, so we've got 2 questions here from Mary. Yeah.
Yes, well, very, very good question. Now, it really just depends on the circumstances, because if the person who is terminally ill, for example, might want to have a sleep after, it's not uncommon for people to want to sleep after they've had healing as well, because that's a very, very important part of healing too. So it depends what's appropriate. But sometimes it's better to have the partner on their own, because they can say things during the healing that they couldn't say with their partner or their spouse being there. But very, very good question. Yes.
If you follow the cats will always find a spot, and they'll just curl up and they'll just, they might be in the sun, or they might just find a nice secluded space. Or sometimes they'll know and they'll come up and they'll sit on your chest and then move into that harmonic resonance.
Send you off to sleep. Which reminds me of a story which was based on a true story, actually. All Creatures Great and Small, with James Herriot, the vet. I don't know if you've had it in the original one. And one of the stories was that he was called to a farm, the young James Herriot, who was just starting off as a vet, and they had a sheep that was just lying stretched out, and he said to the vet, could you have a look and see what you can do? And the vet, James Herriot, checked the sheep over and said, there's nothing to be done. He says, what I'll do, he says, I'll just give it a shot here. It'll just go off to sleep, and then it'll just pass away in its sleep. So they dragged the sheep into the barn, and James Herriot gave it a shot, and off he went. Anyway, a month or 2 later, he was back at the same farm, and I could get the dates wrong, but this is the story itself. He said, did the sheep pass away? And the shepherd said, no. And the farmer said, no, it didn't. He says, after I had the sleep, I got up, it was fine. It was the sleep actually helped the animal to get better. And so one should never underestimate the power of a good sleep. It heals itself.
Okay, here's the second question. Yeah, sorry.
All right. No, that's an old school of thought, yeah.
Well, I think it very much, again, depends on the situation and the circumstances of the person that you're working on. But to me, 10 minutes is a bit on the short side, because in order for a person to relax, even although they might feel they're relaxed when you start working on them, most people will still have, if it's the first time you're working on them, as an example, have a question in their mind about, well, how's this going to be, what's going to happen, and they're not sure. So it takes time for them, just the energies to settle, and then let the healing energies flow in. So I would think 10 minutes would just be a bit on the short side. I would think anywhere maybe between 20 minutes to half an hour to an hour, depending on what needs to be done. But you've got to be guided by the person that you're working on anyway, because you can, in a way, feel what they're feeling and know when it's time to stop.
So bottom line is, you can, do you ever go and ask, do you wish to be healed? Do you ever go and challenge them by saying, do you wish to be healed? And do I have your permission to heal you? I mean, that's two very potent questions, yeah? That's
a very good question. When I first started, and I'd say to people, I'm involved in healing, would you like? Yeah. And they would look at me and they would say, what healing? Is that the work of the devil? They would say, seriously.
Mm.
And I would look and say, no, it's not. People can get very funny when you ask. And of course, if you look at the Bible, Jesus, I'm not saying this as a Christian, I'm just saying this is what's in there. That makes the point. Somebody said to Jesus, is this the work of the devil that you're doing? And Jesus said, anything that works against itself is absolutely doomed to destruction. So if the devil works against himself, he's never going to survive. So that could never happen. The healing comes from a pure place, or it should come from a pure place, a pure heart, and with love, of course, because one should never underestimate the power of unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's the single greatest energy in the universe.
Now, I'll take you on board on another journey. So I was 7 years in the surf lifesaver movement. So one of the things you have to do is in the morning is read the surf. So is the tide coming in, going out? Is the wind coming offshore or onshore? Is there a gutter? Is there a swell that's ripping up the beach? Is it a dumping wave, or it's just nice and calm? The next question is, if someone gets into difficulties, you got to then ascertain what methodology of rescue that you're going to apply. So a torpedo buoy with a surf ski, you're going to get that big old wooden boat and get 8 blokes to come shift that big boat, and in the meantime they've just gone and drowned, or you're going to get the rubber ducky and go there, or you're going to get on the walkie-talkie and get the helicopter to come out, or the jet boat. So the question at the end of the day is that when you go out there to rescue those people, and then they cling on you, and then so you got to bring them back through the waves, and until such time as when their feet touches the sand, and when their feet touches the sand, then that panic is released, and then they start taking their arms around your throat, and you can start breathing again. So I'm just saying, form of healing takes place on many levels. So you're going in there to rescue someone in terms of your healing. Same sort of analogy, isn't it?
It is. In fact, it's a very good point, Jeff, because it's very easy to build up a dependent relationship, and for that matter, for someone to take advantage of someone else, because that person is vulnerable right at the very start. That's why you're there to help them in the first place. And, you have got to be careful who you allow into your life. I say this to everybody, to make sure that you're happy and comfortable with the person that you're going to either be working on or working with. People can become dependent very easily. So if you give someone healing, they might want you to go back next week, the week after that. And really what you want to do is to extricate yourself gently so that they can make the way forward in their own life. Because the whole idea is for someone to be independent, healthy, not dependent, think I need this like a fix every week of someone coming along to work on them. So
the healer, the so-called healer, then becomes dependent on that particular person coming every week to pay them a transaction fee to keep their overhead. So they really become dependent on the person coming for a healing.
So it's just like, so I was going to say, I better not say that, but I was going to comment about some other profession there, but I won't. But you're right, it is. It's one of these things that trust is so very, very important, but it can be so easily misplaced. And I'm not saying that to frighten people. Common sense has always got to be there. Not to get caught up in someone else's excitement, adventure, or drama, or whatever, to keep a cool head, no matter what side of the equation that you're on. If you're the healer or the person that needs healing, you've still got to use common sense and be guided by what you feel, not by a sense of, oh, this person's going to make me this and make me that, or whatever. That's not how it works. The important thing is you've got to trust that person that they're going to do the best that they can for you.
I recall a Cherokee Red Indian guy who'd been taught their indigenous ways of healing. And he then joined in California, Arizona, one of those two states, because he came over from Virginia. He joined a clinic, and he did his work, and they only came in once, and then they never came back. And so the director of the what's name said, "Hey, you can't do that, mate." He said, "What do you mean?" He said, Well, we get appropriations, on the basis that that client comes and sees us 10 times. He said, well, you're supposed to heal them, mate. That's what the whole Hippocratic Oath is, isn't it? It was a real big eye-opener for him. Yeah.
I'd like to share something. When I worked in a hospice when I was in Australia, and I was a volunteer, and I used to go around with I got a little reverie harp, and I used to let people just tinkle away, or I just tinkle away. And I went into this patient, and he had awful breathing problems and coughing. So anyway, I was just sat there, and I said to him, I said, coughing is about getting something off your chest. I said, is there something you'd like to share with me that you want to get off your chest that maybe you haven't been able to say to anybody else? And he said, I don't think so. And then in the next moment, the tears were streaming down his face, and I just sat there tinkling away and holding space. And then anyway, he sort of composed himself, and he said, thank you. And next, within minutes, the family come to see him. And it was like, I was thinking, oh, thank you. Like, for, whatever happened. I mean, don't need to know. But in that moment, he was able to release something that, maybe hadn't been it's just like I'd sort of given him permission to let go of something without family members being there.
So important, Andrea, and well done to you. Yeah.
Well,
it makes a profound difference. It can make such a simple thing can make a profound difference in someone's life.
Totally. And it's like giving permission. It's like giving permission, and it's like when we've worked with people dying in the past, we've said to the family members, have you given him permission to go, and said this, because people are hanging on, and people don't realize, like,
let them go. Yeah.
And they don't want them to go, they don't want them to leave, and that person is ready to leave. So there's this dynamics going on, and yet, families in the best way in the world, sometimes they need to step back and allow that person to go, which is hard. I mean, it's not easy, but it's life.
Yeah, I think you very often find that if the person is ready to pass, if you leave the room, then that's when you actually go. Not when you're waiting. It's when you go out the room for a moment, and it happens.
And I've heard that so many times. And when my mum was passing, I went and sat with her for the last few hours, and I had a friend come, and she did a prayer over her, and she said, let's thank that body, that vessel that has carried her through the traumas and all the things. So we did all that and what have you. So, and I don't know, she was there a couple of hours. So, so she said, well, I got to go now. So I said, I'll see you out, because it was in a nursing home. Went to the door, came back, mother was gone. And and I thought, God, I've heard everybody say, I went out the door, and it literally happened to me. I went gone a few minutes, and I come back and she'd gone, and I thought, wow. She couldn't wait for me to get out of the room so she could go.
Well, that reminds me of I know time will be short, but
no, it's fine.
I read this book many years ago called, I think it was Life After Life. It was the first of the genre where people talk about near-death experiences. In fact, it was the guy's Dr. Raymond Moody. It was his second book. He was talking about a man who died, and he was stretched out on the mortuary table, dead. I mean, really. And the guy obviously was living, because he was telling the story afterwards. He said that when he was lying there, he found a white light and whatever you went, and he was asked this question, is there anything that you want to finish off before you actually pass over? And he said, well, something along the lines of, my 14-year-old son's going through a hard time at the moment. I feel I really need to be there for him. And they said, well, okay, that's fine, you can go back. So this is after quite a bit of while. He's been lying on this mortuary table. He sat up, and he was back to where he was before he left. It's just all these energies at work. You don't know what's going on, do you, really?
No, totally.
Yeah, because I remember being in intensive care with my mum, and our family did rotating shifts, and it was midnight, and my dad and I finished up, and I stood at the door and I said, hey, Mum, you can go now, it's all right. And then that was midnight. It was about 1:10. My brother rang up and said, "Oh, Mum's gone." I said, "Okay, no problem, mate. All good."
Mm.
It's hard though, isn't it? It's always harder for those that are left behind, I think, because you've got that grief, that sense of loss. But the other part says, well, at least they've moved on.
Yeah,
Well, the thing for me was a couple of nights later. I'm standing on our family's front porch, and Mum walks through the bloody wall of the bedroom, comes out on the porch, and said, "Well, what's going on?" And I said, and then I grabbed hold of her and said, "I'm taking you to heaven," and then boom, straight took it away.
Wow.
So that to me was okay. She's good. No, not a plus. All good. Yeah. No
What a
drama.
great story. Yeah. Great story.
Mm. Okay.
What else, Adriana? Anything else, mate?
No, I think that's been really lovely, John. I've really enjoyed your sharing and listening to you. And yeah, I should be playing some more of the sounds, whether I can hear them or no. I still got to get my head around that silent meditation. It just,
I know. It's a strange one, isn't it?
Yeah,
it really
yeah.
It is. I find that too.
Yeah.
But thank you both very much for your hospitality. Greatly appreciated.
No,
Thank
it's
you.
absolutely lovely. So thank you very much, John, for
Thank
being
you.
star of the show this week. Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you, everybody. And same time, same place next week.
Oh, hang on, sorry, we just got one more. Hey,
All right.
the subliminal as opposed to theta waves.
As opposed to what, sorry?
Theta, theta, theta waves. Or theta, yeah, okay. You know, the work that was done by Jose de Silva, the American guy.
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
And alpha dynamics, all those things of going into a theta wave, and then you absorb everything. So so subliminal. I know in radio stations we're not allowed to use that subliminal type of broadcasting, purely for people who are driving.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
But from a healing point of view, it's been an awesome way of describing it. And also for my hypnotherapy, I thought that was a very interesting part of the show today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And interesting enough, I did do a Jose Silva course many years ago in Glasgow, and it was very interesting. Yeah, I did enjoy it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening.